You ever wonder what it really takes to change the world? Sometimes it's not some grand, complicated plan. It's just a single moment. A moment where you finally see things exactly as they are. And that's what we're going to get into today. One of the most powerful stories of transformation you'll ever hear.
This right here, this is the core of it all. It's an idea so simple, but it was powerful enough to change everything. This is the story of a man who had literally everything you could possibly imagine, only to find out that the one thing that truly matters, well, you can't find it inside palace walls.
So let's set the scene. We're going way back to ancient India, and we're meeting a young prince named Siddhartha. And his life, it was something out of a fairy tale. I mean, complete luxury, total beauty, constant comfort. But it was all a carefully constructed bubble designed to keep the real world out.
So you might be wondering, why? Why go to all this trouble to create this perfect world? Well, it all boils down to a prophecy. See, Siddhartha's father, the king, was told his son would grow up to be one of two things: a mighty king who would rule the world, or a great spiritual guide who would renounce it. The king, wanting an heir to the throne, basically freaked out and did everything in his power to hide any sign of suffering from his son. No sadness, no sickness, no pain, nothing.
But you can't keep reality out forever. No matter how high you build the walls, the truth always finds a way to sneak in. And one day, Prince Siddhartha decides he wants to see what's outside the palace. And what he sees on that trip, it's going to change his life and, honestly, the course of history forever.
So the first thing he sees, the very first thing that just stops him dead in his tracks, is a frail, trembling old man. Now, for you and me, that's just a part of life. But imagine, if you've only ever seen people in their prime, young and vibrant, this would be a massive shock.
He turns to his chariot driver, completely stunned, and asks this one simple question that just shatters everything. For the very first time, he has to face the fact that the perfect youth and strength he's surrounded by, it doesn't last. And that right there, that was the first crack in the wall of his perfect little world.
And it didn't stop there. As they kept going, he saw his second sight. A person just completely overcome with some disease, suffering and terrible pain. And this just drives home another hard truth, that this body we live in is fragile. It can break. The perfect life he thought was real was starting to look more and more like a beautiful lie.
And then came the third sight, the big one, the most profound of them all. He sees a funeral procession, a body being carried away. The idea of death, that life actually ends, was something that had been totally, completely hidden from him. You can just imagine the silence, the deep gut punch of understanding that started to settle in. So just as his entire understanding of the world is completely shattering, he sees the fourth and final sight. It's a wandering monk. This guy has nothing, no palace, no fine clothes, no possessions. And yet, he just radiates this incredible calm, this deep, profound peace. Right in the face of all the suffering Siddhartha had just witnessed, here was someone who looked truly free.
And seeing those four sights in one day, it just lit a fire in him. He got it. The happiness he'd always known was fleeting. It was fake, built on just ignoring pain. But the peace he saw in that monk, that was real, that was lasting, and it was found by facing suffering head-on. He knew right then and there he couldn't go back to his old life. So, in the middle of the night, he did the unthinkable. He quietly walked away from the palace. He left behind his title, his family, his destiny as a king, every single comfort he had ever known. And he did it all just to find an answer to the suffering he now knew was part of life.
But leaving the palace was just the beginning. I mean, going from silk robes to simple rags, from lavish feasts to begging for food, it was a brutal, grueling search for the truth. He chose a path that was the absolute polar opposite of the life he'd left behind.
And this wasn't a quick trip. For 6 long years, he pushed himself to the absolute limit. He wandered through forests, he studied with the smartest teachers he could find, and he practiced these extreme forms of meditation, basically starving himself. But even after all that, the final, solid answer he was looking for just wasn't there. Finally, he's totally exhausted, but he's not defeated. He comes to this Bodhi tree, sits down, and makes this incredibly powerful vow. He basically says to himself, to the universe, that's it. I am not getting up from this spot until I find the truth about suffering and how to be free from it.
So, this was it, the final stage. And this journey wasn't about going somewhere else. The final battle was going to happen right inside his own mind. As he sat there, meditating, he had to face down the very nature of illusion itself.
The story goes that a being named Mara, who was basically the Lord of Illusion, showed up to try and break him. Mara threw everything at him, terrifying visions, crippling doubt, all the temptations in the world. But Siddhartha didn't fight back. He didn't argue. He just watched it all with this incredible stillness and clarity. And because he didn't feed them any energy, they just faded away.
And then, as the morning star appeared in the sky, just as the sun started to rise, it happened. In this quiet, profound flash of insight, everything became clear. He saw reality for what it was. He had woken up. He wasn't Prince Siddhartha anymore. He was the Buddha, the awakened one.
So what was this earth-shattering truth that he discovered? Well, it's actually beautiful in its simplicity. He realized that, yep, suffering is real. Old age, sickness, death, they exist. But, and this is the key, he saw that our struggle with it, and therefore our freedom from it, doesn't come from changing the outside world. It all starts right here, inside our own minds.
It's just an incredible story, right? How one person's relentless search for an answer can end up lighting a path for millions. It all started with just seeing 4 things he'd never seen before. And it ended with a whole new way of understanding what it means to be human. It kind of leaves us with a question, doesn't it? What truth are you searching for?